Hello everyone. Um, let's talk about trig. And today's topic will be unit circle. Okay, a unit circle. What is a unit circle? A unit circle has a radius of 1 unit. So any circle that has a radius of 1, that's called a unit circle. In xy plane, it has an equation of x square plus y square equal 1. Okay, so a unit circle has the equation for x square plus y square equal 1. Okay, now let's draw it. Let's go down a unit circle. Here we go. Let's do it here. Let's put it down here. So it's in xy plane, right? Sorry, just x and y plane. Now in xy plane, this is called first quadrant. First quadrant, okay? Or let me just erase this right down here so that it will not. So this is called first quadrant. First quadrant. This is called second quadrant. This is called third quadrant. This is called fourth quadrant. So you see the first, second, third quadrant, right? So here we can write it on 0 here. You can say 0 degree or 0, and this is 180, and this point is 180. This is 270, and if you go all the way here, it's again 360. Okay. In terms of pi, it's still 0. This is since it's okay, I forgot to tell you, it's 90 degree, and it's also pi by 2. This is just pi. This is 3 pi by 2, and this is 2 pi. Okay, so now look at this angle. Let's say these angles are theta, right? For this angle, the theta here is just 30 degree. This is 45 degree. Then we add 15, this is 60 degree. Then we have 90 degree. Then it's gonna be we add 30 degrees, 120 degree, then 135 degree, then 150 degree, then we have 180. Then again it's gonna be okay. So we can add here, so it's gonna be 210 degree. Then we have 225 degree. Then we have 240 degree. Then we have 270, 300, 315, 330, 330, and then 360. So in terms of pi, we can just write it down. This is pi by 6. This is pi by 4. And this is pi by 3. So if we circle around, you'll find the answers. So now for here in 0 degree, it's just 0 and 1. Here I have to mention x is cosine and y is sine. So that's mean 0 degree at cosine is just 0 degree, and 0 degree in sorry, here we go. Let me just sign, right? So here we go. This is 1 comma 0. It's 1 comma 0, right? So 0 degree of cosine is just 1, value is 1, and 0 degree as sine is just value 0. In 30 degree, cosine is square root 3 over 2, and sine is just half. Same thing happened with the 45 degree. X values are cosine, so it's going to be square root 2 over 2. That's the value of cosine 45 degree, and sine 45 degree is same as square root 2 over 2. Then in sine 60 degree and cosine 60 degree, the x value will be cosine, so cosine 60 degree is just half, and sine 60 degree is just square root 3 over 2. And cosine 90 degree is 0. Sine 90 degree is 1. Now, if you guys look at this part, I want to show you. I don't know if you notice, guys. So you see the x from 0 to 90 degree is exactly, and sine is exactly opposite from 0 to 90 degree. That's mean from 90 to 0 degree is exactly, you can just put the x values. You see, for 0 degree, cosine is 1. And so if we start from here, so sine 0 degree is going to be, sine 90 degree is going to be 1. So at 30 degree, cosine is square root 3 over 2. That's mean at 60 degree, since we're coming from this line, right, it's 3 square root 3 over 2. And 45 degree is going to be same, since this one. And sine 30 degree is going to be cosine 30 degree, which is half. Then sine 0 degree is going to be cosine 90 degree, which is 0. It's just you guys can just have it vice versa. You'll get the same answer. Now if we do from here, we do the same thing. We start from here again, then from here we just use this. So it's going to be 120 is what we have, half over half is square root 3 by 2. Then 150 is going to be square root 2. 135 is square root 2 by 2 is square root 2 by 2. And here 150 is going to be square root 3 by 2 comma half. Then 180 is going to be 1 comma 0. Now since it's the first quadrant, x is positive, y is negative. Okay, in first quadrant always x is positive and y is positive. That's been all of them positive. But in second quadrant, x is always negative, right? So x is always negative and y is positive. So since x is our cosine, so all the cosine value is going to be negative. So it's going to be negative, it's going to be negative, it's going to be negative. Okay, since it's the cosine value, all of them has to be negative no matter what. So the cosine will be negative since it was in there, second coordinate, it's going to be negative. Let me just write it down here. So it's going to be much more easier for you guys to look at it. So negative 1 comma 0. You see the exact value. And here sine is negative, x is negative. In this coordinate, x is negative, y is also negative. So that's mean here is going to be have the same values what we got from here. We're going to just start doing it, write it down here, but in the negative form. Okay, and here is x is positive but y is negative. So we have to do for that's mean here all the sine value here, all the sine value going to be positive negative, and all the cosine value going to be positive. Since x is positive, all the cosine value is going to be positive here, and since y is negative, all the sine value has to be negative. So I already did it for you guys, so you can just guys can see it here. So you see the first quadrant here, this is the first quadrant, right? Everything is positive, sine is positive, cosine is positive. Okay, and here sine is negative, cosine is positive. So you see that all the cosine values here are negative and all the sine values is positive. This is the third quadrant, sine is negative, cosine is negative too. You see, sine is negative, cosine is negative, sine is negative, cosine is negative. And the fourth quadrant, cosine is positive, but sine is negative. You see, the value cosine is positive, but sine value is negative. So first coordinate actually start from 0 degree, but it's less than 90 degree. If it's the theta, angle is theta, theta has to be more than 0 degree but less than 90 degree. Same thing, more than 90 degree for second quadrant, less than 180. For third quadrant, more than 180, less than 270. Fourth quadrant, more than 270, less than 360. If you talk about in terms of pi, first quadrant is more than 0 but less than pi by 2 radians. Here more than pi by 2 radians but less than pi radians in second quadrant. Third quadrant, more than pi but less than 3 pi by 2. And fourth quadrant, more than 3 pi by 2, less than 2 pi. So this is the unit circle. You guys can do it. So once you have the unit circle, you can this unit circle, then let's do some practice here. Okay, the practice, I'm gonna do just first 0 degree to 90 degree. I want you guys to practice the rest of them. What is 0 radian? Is 0. 30 degree is just pi by 6. 45 degree is just pi by 4. 60 degree is just pi by 6. Sorry, it's gonna be like bad. It's gonna be pi by 3. Here you go. Pi by 3. 90 degree is just pi by 2. And 120 degree is gonna be 2 pi by 3. I want you guys to fill up rest of them. 150, 180. Let's just practice from the unit circle. What we got? Cosine 0 degree is, we got what? Cosine 0 degree is just, we got 1. Remember, sine 0 degree is just sine. So since 10 is just ratio between sine and cosine, remember that 10 is sine by cosine. So 0 divided by 1 is just 0. Cosecant is the opposite of sine, so it's going to be undefined. Okay, secant is the opposite of cosine, is 1. Opposite, if you flip it, it's going to be 1. Cotangent, if you flip the 10, it's going to be undefined. Okay, so undefined. Let's just do it. For 30 degree, cos 30 degree is square root 3 by 2. Sine 30 degree is just half. Tan 30 degree, what's going to be tan 30 degree is just square root 3 by 3. Cosecant 30 degree is going to be just 2, because you're going to just flip sine theta. Secant 30 degree is just 2 square root of 3 by 3. And cotangent 30 degree is just square root of 3, since it's going to flip it. So same way you guys can do it. I'm going to do the 45 degree again, guys. For you guys, it's going to be square root 2 by 2. Same thing is square root 2 by 2. And this is 1. Cosine theta is going to be just square root of 2. Secant theta is going to be just square root of 2. Cotangent theta is going to be 1, because if you flip it. Now, 60 degree, cosine 60 degree is just half. Cosine 90 degree is going to be 0. You remember that I told you whatever value you got here, you have to start from here, from here to here. You have to start from here to here. Always it's going to flip. So here you have 1. So here it's going to be 1. Here you have square root 3 over 2. Here is going to be square root 3 by 2. Then here you have square root 2 by 2. It's going to be square root 2 by 2. Then here you have square root, here is square root, you have half. So it's going to be half. You see? Then here you have 0. So it's going to be 0. Always it's going to be same. Okay, same pattern. For tan theta, we got the same thing. For tan theta, you just divide by divide. This one, sine theta divided, you get square root of 3. for 60 degree. For cosecant theta, you have to flip it, so it's going to be 2. And for secant theta, it's going to be, for secant theta, it's going to be, sorry, it's cosecant theta, right? Cosecant theta is going to be square 2 is square root 3 by 3. And secant theta is going to be 2. Okay. So here for 10 90 degree, right? 90 degree is always undefined, since 1 over 0 is undefined. So cotangent is going to be opposite of 10, so it's going to be 0. If you flip undefined, it's going to be 0. Now cosecant 90 degree is going to be opposite of sine, which is 1. And secant 90 degree is going to be undefined, since you cannot flip 0. If you flip 0, it's going to be undefined. So I want you guys to fill up all of them. Just remind it that which one will be first coordinate, second coordinate, third coordinate. And I want you to guys try. Once you finish, then this is the result you will get. Okay. I wanted to make sure you guys pay attention on this. And for, if you guys want to write it down, it's just 0 is 0 in terms of radians. I forgot to add the radians. You can just do that too. It's going to be pi by 6. It's going to be pi by 4. It's going to be pi by 3. It's going to be pi by 2. Right? Then for this one, it's going to be 2 pi by 3. And this is going to be 3 pi by 4. And 50 is going to be 5 pi by 6. And 80 is just pi. Then I want you guys to just do all of them. So that I'm going to write it down just 2 pi. And okay. So that you guys can have it. You see, you can have better understanding on it. Then let's go to the next. Now we're going to do practice. Okay. So what do you have now here? I want to discuss about this one too. Sine theta, right? What is sine theta? Negative theta. If you see anytime you have this sine, if you have negative theta, it's always negative. Sine doesn't change. Sine theta, you will get sine theta. You know why? Let's say you have this. You start from here, so it's negative. So instead of going there, you are going. Here you go. So this is the first coordinate. This is the second. This is third. This is fourth, right? So sine, negative theta means 0 if it goes here, in fourth coordinate. In fourth coordinate, sine is always negative. All right? In fourth quadrant, cosine is positive. So cosine negative is just cosine theta. So 10, since one of them is negative, so 10 gonna be also negative. So 10 theta. Since 10 is the ratio between sine and cosine, so it's gonna be negative 2. For cosecant, is the opposite of sine, right? So if it's negative, so it's gonna be negative 2. Cosecant theta. For cotangent, you see cosine is opposite of is secant, right? If you flip it cosine, then you get secant theta. So it's going to be also positive secant theta. And for cotangent is, since if you can flip the tan theta, you get the cotangent theta. So and 10 is negative, so it's going to be also negative. So cot theta. Now let's do some practice exercise, right? Okay, let's just do it. So sine negative 60 is gonna be what? It's gonna be negative sine 60. And what is negative sine 60? It's gonna, sine 60 is 3 is equal to 3 over 2. So it's negative 3 over 2. Cosine 45 is gonna be just cosine 45. Since it's negative, it goes away for cosine. So it's gonna be just square root 2 by 2, right? Now tan 60, since one of them is negative, we just remember that we says tan theta is what? Negative tan theta. Tan negative theta is negative tan theta, right? So we're gonna write it down. Tan is going to be negative 60, which is, what is tan 60? Is just square root of 3. Cotangent 30, again is going to be negative cotangent of 30. What is cotangent of 30? Cot 30 is just 3. So remember that in this 10, we have to write down the minus, minus, negative, negative. Now, cosecant 90 degree is going to be negative cosecant, and you have 90 degree. Now you have to write down the value. What is cosecant 90 degree? It's just 1. So it's going to be negative 1. And now for this secant, it's going to be just positive secant 60 degree. What is secant 60 degree? If you guys remember, can you guys think what is secant 60 degree? It's just 2, right? So that's the exercise for our sine when they have a negative values in terms of degrees or radians. You get this. Now next, learn another one. So what do you know about in second quadrant? Remember in second quadrant, so it's very easy when you have 0 degree, 30 degree, 45 degree, then what do you have? 60 degree, then 90 degree. So let's say you don't remember, since in most of the exam you have to find out the exact value. So if you know this, only this angle's value, then you can find out any kind of values. This is an example for that. So in the second quadrant, right? Second quadrant, 90 degree, theta, 180 degree. What does it mean? It just mean it is second quadrant, right? Look, this is 90 degree, theta is less than 90 degree. So theta is more than 90 degree and less than 180 degree. You see, that means this is a second quadrant. So this is a second quadrant here. So this is the second quadrant. So we can just write down second quadrant. In second quadrant, what happened? Cosine 90 degree. So in second quadrant, what is the second quadrant? X value is positive. Sorry, X value is negative. So it's negative. Y value is positive. So that's mean X in second quadrant. So X value is our cosine function, right? So cosine is always going to be negative. So cosine, and whenever we have 90 degree, we have to change the function. So cosine 90 degree plus theta, whenever we have 90 degree, is going to be it's going to change. So it's going to be cosine is going to be sine. 90 degree plus theta, we can just write down theta. We don't have to write down 90 degree anymore. So it's going to be, and since it's the second quadrant, it's going to be minus. Cosine is always minus. For sine, you change the function. What's going to be function? Cosine, right? Sine, when you have cosine function, opposite function is sine. When you sine, opposite function is cosine. So cosine theta. Since sine in second coordinate is positive, so we have to write down we don't have to change the sign. For tan, in second quadrant, tan is negative, so you just write down negative. So tan, what is the opposite of tan? It's cot, right? So it's going to be cot theta. So cosecant 90 degree is going to be cosecant, since it's going to be positive since it's the second coordinate, and cosecant is opposite is secant, right? And you have theta. When you have secant 90 degree, it's going to be cosecant, and since it's the second coordinate, it's going to be negative, and it's going to be theta. When you have cotangent, so that means it's going to be 10 cot, and since it's the second quadrant, it's going to be negative theta. So if you guys didn't get it properly, let's do an example, then you will get it much more easier. Let's do an example. Look here, this is the exercise for this is the second quadrant, right? So cosine, we can rewrite that in terms of 90 degrees. Since it's more than 90 degree and less than 180 degree, 150, so we can just gonna write it down like this. Let's say cosine 150 is 90 degree plus 60 degree. Okay, what does it mean? That's mean now, since cosine is second quadrant negative, we just write down negative. And what is, since here you see the 90 degree plus 60 degree, that's mean it's like 90 degree plus theta, right? Whenever you see 90 degree plus theta, you always change the function. So if it's a cosine function, you have to write down sine function. Sine all the time. Cosine is all the sine, and sine is all the time cosine. Sine 60 degree. What is sine 60 degree? It's just square root 3 over 2. That's your answer. Okay. Now for sine 120 degree, what is how do we write it down? Sine, we can write down sine 120 is just 90 plus 30, right? Okay. 90 plus 30. Now sine 90 degree, right? So we have to change the function. So we have to write down cosine, but since it's a second quadrant, sine is positive, so we just leave like that. In second quadrant, sine is positive, right? So sine is positive, you know, y function is positive, so we can just write down cosine 30. What is cosine 30? In here, cosine 30 is just square root 3 over 2. It's the same thing, but but it was negative, is positive. Okay. Now 10 135. So first of all, we just write it down, because since it's more than 90 less than 180, so we can just do 10 90 degree plus what, 45 degree, right? Now let's do it. 10 90 degree, so it's function going to be changed, so it's going to be cotangent 45 degree, right? But it is second quadrant, so cot is always negative, so negative cotangent 45 degree is just 1. Same, let's do it. Let's do other three trig function. So remember that what we know, cosecant. What is cosecant? Cosecant, so it's going to do cosecant 90 degree plus 60 degree. Okay, so cosecant 90 degree plus 60 degree, we just, since cosecant 90 degree, we have to change the sign, so it's going to be secant secant 60 degree. Okay, secant 60 degree. Since cosecant is in the second quadrant, it's going to be positive. Secant 60 degree is what? Secant 60 degree is just 2, so its answer is 2. Now let's do this one. We have secant 120. That means it's more than 90, less than 180. Again, it's going to be 90 plus 30, right? 120. So secant 90 degree is going to change the function. It's going to change the function. So it's going to be cosecant. Okay. And here 30 degree. So what is, you just write down 30 degree. And here it's going to be negative. In second quadrant, secant is always negative. What is cosecant 30 degree? Cosecant 30 degree is just 2. So, and you have minus, you just put minus, then minus 2. Now cotangent 120, right? So let's just do this one. Cotangent 120. So just write down cotangent. We have 1, so 90 degree plus 30 degree. So that's mean it is cotangent, right? Since you see, since we have cotangent 90 degree, right, we have to change the function. So if we change the function, what we get? We get 10 10 30 degree. So if you have 10 30 and it's going to be negative, what is 10 30? 10 30 is negative square root 3 over 3. So that's your answer. Hopefully everyone understand this. Once we practice, since we practice this, hopefully everyone got it.